Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of the SlowCast. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about Ix the Interloper, the character that's come out of the Design You're Not 2 contest. After that, we're going to talk about the situation here at SlowWolf HQ. What's up with the lack of videos? Does this guy even make them anymore? And finally, a little talk on Bob Ross and change. More on that in just a minute. It's been a couple of weeks. How are all you doing? I hope you're doing all very, very well indeed. Welcome to the second episode of the SlowCast. First on the list, we've got Ix the Interloper. So, if you've been paying attention, we've had a second Design You're Not 2 contest that's been going on for a while, and the winner for the mechanics and the actual character, like the meat of the character, ended up being Ix the Interloper out of all the choices. Now, this caused a bit of a ruckus for some people. I'm totally happy with what got chosen at the end of the day. It's actually a pretty cool knot, and I'd like to talk to you guys about Ix today, just a little bit, his backstory and mechanics, and then just doing some theory crafting, because, hey, who doesn't like some theory crafting, am I right? So let's go ahead and talk about who this guy is. Let's look at his backstory of Ix the Interloper, the crystalline being from Luxor. So what the frick is Luxor? Let's find out. The crystals found on the sparkling moon of Luxor have long been misunderstood, exhibiting unique and astounding properties that have attracted intergalactic mining megacorporations from across the stars. In an effort to find the purest crystal to experiment on in the hope its energy could be harnessed, Luxor was torn apart and its shimmering glass forests replaced by science labs and factories. However, there was one inhabitant of Luxor that would not allow his home to be destroyed, or his throat to catch with phlegm. That was gross. Ix, the sprightly and unusually courageous Luxuxi, I hope I said that right, set out on a mission to save his planet from greedy invaders. Imbuing the purest Luxor crystal with his life force, Ix took on the crystalline form and used his newfound powers to raise the facility to the ground. Determined to ensure that no other planet would face the same fate as Luxor, Ix snuck aboard a fleeing mining vessel and began his endless fight for peace, even if it meant working for his enemies. Dun dun dun. So with that in mind, he's obviously an interesting little character, and he's all like supposed to be crystally. The art contest has some really neat entries. Because there were so many good ones, Ronimo ended up picking the top 6 instead of just the top 5. So there's a pretty cool range of them, and I'm a pretty big fan of loons, to say the least. It really fits the description. All of them do, but I really appreciate the cereal bowl and loon for going for like this kind of off the rails, cute kind of look to it. There's also one really elegant Ix art thing, and Pixel Hat, as always, putting together a fabulous piece of artwork. Gifties is very interesting, but I'd like to see a proper plant, not just like this weird crystally supporter kind of person. It's interesting, you know? So, let's take a look at the actual mechanics instead of just, ranting and raving about how this character's supposed to look and stuff. And Ix is supposed to be a support and initiator. And from what I've read of the mechanics and how he/she will move, it's gonna kind of be like Vengeful Spirit from Dota 2. I think is the best way to kind of explain Ix using a different MOBA. But if you can combine that with a couple of other supports from a different game that I can think of, one in particular would be Empath from Han, you would have an interesting, that's the kind of knot you got here. So let's go ahead and talk about that. As far as movement goes, his movement is going to be balanced, which means, average jump height, average speed, fairly quick acceleration, so he's not going to take forever to get rolling like, say, Clunk does. Now, the vertical jump speed is going to be slightly slower than most knots, but not as slow as Clunk and Durple, which is odd for a piece of rock. You'd think that it would fall pretty freaking fast, but not the case here. So we'll probably be like controlling a slightly higher jumping Lone Star. That's going to be my guess. The attack for Ix is a close range energy burst that simultaneously shoots out an energy bolt. Now, this is interesting because it doesn't say very much. Honestly, the more detailed explanation is releases a burst of energy dealing damage to enemies close to Ix, as well as emitting a fast-moving ranged energy bolt in a given direction. Allows Ix to focus multiple targets at once, but can deal most damage when both attacks are combined at close range. So this makes Ix kind of more powerful, obviously close up, while body blocking or doing something like that. So I'm hoping he's a little bit tanky, and with other abilities he will be. But I have one question about this particular attack, which, although very interesting, I would imagine that both of the damaging aspects of the ability do a little bit less damage on their own than they would if there was just one attack. Like, it's slightly below average damage, but when you combine the two, it's quite a bit higher. So one thing I'm wondering is, does his attack work more like Lone Star's, where you're actually aiming with the cursor, or are we talking about like the very first ranged Awesonaut to not be able to choose a specific direction that it's attacking in, kind of like a la Mega Man? Imagine if you had to like jump and shoot like Mega Man the entire time as a character. That would be interesting. I don't think that'll be the case though. So yeah, it seems really basic. It seems like it's going to work and allows him to push very well as well, because the AoE from the burst, I'm guessing it'll be an AoE, would allow him to push a little bit better. His primary skill, which I've decided to call Bond. In this case, it's called Psionic Bond in the long-range description, but briefly put, he tosses out a projectile. If the projectile hits an Awesonaut, you link with them. If you link with an ally, you get bonus movement and health regen. Both you and the friendly Awesonaut do. So that's what's going to allow Ix here to be a little bit tankier than usual. But if you manage to hit an enemy, it deals damage to them over time. In the expanded explanation of the skill, it talks a little bit more about it. The damage that it deals is obviously over time in small ticks, but it has an infinite duration and can be recast, and it will break if the target moves too far away from X. So that's interesting. I'm not exactly sure how I feel about an infinite duration. I would expect it to last for like maybe 10 seconds and have like a 7-second cooldown. That would be pretty cool, because at that point it would be practically an infinite duration, but then you'd actually have to apply it and do it yourself, which would be fine. I think that would add more activity to the thing. Secondary skill, we have something called Refract or Displace. I'm just going to call it Phase Shift. And this is what makes him a lot more like Vengeful Spirit from Dota 2 than any other of his other abilities. So what he does is he shifts into another dimension, becoming immune to damage for a brief moment. That's what it does if he's not linked to anybody. If he's linked to somebody, he will swap places with the linked not. So he can do some really interesting stuff with that. And I'd like to talk about that just for a minute, because that's all of his abilities. I figured, like, I've explained it now. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the cool stuff you can do with him. So his base attack is basic, so let's move on from that. We've already talked about it. His first skill, we've already talked about it a little bit, and it could use a little bit more activity, but I think that it's pretty solid. Shoots a projectile, only hits Awesomenauts, and yeah, you can recast it every 7 seconds, and it only lasts for 10, and it's supposed to last forever, but whatever. As far as this last ability goes, the swap / phase shift, that's going to be the bread and butter of a good Ix player. Absolutely. If you manage to target a friendly knot, imagine being able to swap an exploding Clunk into a fight. Like, you're the one that goes in because you're faster, Clunk's behind you and he's linked up, and then just as Clunk's about to explode, you swap. Boom! Clunk's in the middle of the fight all of a sudden, the explode went off, and you practically targeted it for him, which was awesome. Plus, now you're both moving a bit faster and have some extra HP regen, so whoever you're targeting and initiating with, in that case, could be extremely helpful. The other thing that you can do as far as initiation goes is target an opponent. And this is, again, something that makes things very interesting from a initiation perspective. You can target somebody that's gotten out a little bit out of place, and then swap with them into your team. If your team's doing their thing, they'll be there waiting. The guy's already taking damage over time thanks to your ability. And yeah, Bob's your uncle. You've managed to make a very solid swap. Now, the problem there is if the enemy team is also waiting, then you're probably going to die. Because, let's be honest, you just swapped with their teammate, and you probably just swapped yourself into their team. So what I'm expecting to happen more often with this is you saving people rather than initiating with it. There'll be times when you initiate, definitely, absolutely. Those will happen whenever somebody on the other team makes a mistake and is on their own. But swapping yourself into the opposing team will definitely get you killed. So what I'm expecting to see more often is your frog or somebody dashes in, does his thing, and all of a sudden they retaliate. He's low on HP. You manage to link with him and then swap with him. Now suddenly your frog is safe. You've put yourself in the way, and you're likely at relatively full HP. And you're not as fast as Frog, but hey, you at least have phase shift and a bunch of other things. You can probably get yourself out of there, depending on how deep your Frog dove to try to do some stuff. So, there are a lot of cool things you can do with Ix. There are some things I'm a little bit worried about, but I'll be honest, they're small and they're mechanically based. Like, is Ronimo's engine capable of doing this? And I think it is. I think there's definitely the capability for people to be able to do this, for the people at Ronimo to be able to create this character in roughly the way that Connor Beebe, the person who designed the mechanics, envisioned. But past like just mechanical concerns, I'm just excited. Out of the 5 knots that made it to the end, I honestly believe that this was probably one of the best ideas. You had 2 other really cool ones, at least. I really liked the lady with the spear and the shield and all that stuff, because it was basic and it was simple and it got to the point, but it used existing mechanics, so it was a safe bet. But it was also interesting because it was the first time that we'd had a character that was positionally based, more than anything, like literally in order to do anything that she had to do. And the other thing that was really interesting were the 2 owls. I was very worried about the owls, though, more so than even Ix, from the mechanics perspective, just because the 2 of them were 2 different characters. It'd be like having a Meepo. And honestly, I was not super confident about how that one was turning out. It looked like it was going to win due to some stuff that happened. A bunch of people are still salty over it. They didn't. Ix did. And I'm not going to lie, I'm actually kind of happy about that. Like I described to you guys, I'm actually super excited about Ix. I think he's going to be really cool. He's got a lot of interesting synergies with, like I said, Clunk. Durple would be really neat. Imagine swapping a Sentry into a fight as well. That could be really cool. And then being able to save your teammates and then pick off opposing teammates from relative safety. I'm guessing that's going to be something to really look forward to. I actually can't wait to see how this guy turns out. And that was Megalovania by Toby Fox. That particular version of the track comes from Undertale, a game that I've yet to play, and I'll explain why in a moment. But from what I've heard, it's fantastic, and that song has popped up in a bunch of Toby Fox's work in the past, including all the stuff he's composed for Homestuck. It's shown up in a couple of those animated videos, in case if you keep up with that particular fan base. Now, reasons why I haven't played Undertale are numerous. Actually, no, it's just one. It's because I just don't have a computer. So let's talk about the situation here at SlowWolf HQ and why I've been bitching about not being able to play games for the past little bit over Twitter. If you aren't following me on the Twitters, you should. It makes things a lot easier. So, yeah, first off, as you guys may or may not have known by now, I've definitely moved to the UK, and I've been working and living here now for the past 2.25 months. It's been pretty cool. The UK is like a weird, displaced universe version of Canada as far as I'm concerned. It's okay. It's okay. I'm gonna need to give it more time before I really decide whether or not I like the UK, but I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be living here for longer than I absolutely have to, which will probably be about 2 years. But yeah, the UK is okay, and the proximity to other countries, including the Netherlands, where the Ronimos are, and France, where the other half of my family lives, is pretty sweet. Particularly because I actually love the food in both those places and need to go back. But outside of that, I've been living in the UK. Now, this means that I couldn't exactly bring my desktop over. It was difficult to pack it inside of a luggage case containing literally the rest of my life. So I did my best, and I tried to plan for that eventuality, and I brought 2 laptops. I brought my old 8-year-old Mac top, which was definitely something. And I also brought my 5-year-old Dell. The 5-year-old Dell being called Iris. Now, Iris had a small problem. Unfortunately, the power supply or something, it's just not picking up power from the charge cable. So as a result, it is quite dead and doesn't want to start up except for every once in a while when it just gasps once more before deciding to sleep forever. So yeah, couldn't exactly use my gaming laptop, which was far more powerful than the one I'm currently recording this on, to make videos, which has been a problem. That's largely because I want to make videos. I like YouTube. It's a hobby of mine that I quite enjoy doing. So I saw that as a problem. I then looked out for computers. In the UK had nothing I could use or afford. Everything that they've got over here is buy it all in one go. And it's like, here, it's £1,000. I was like, okay. £1,000 for like the low end of things. And I'm not sure if I can bring it home eventually. Yeah, let's not do that. So instead, I looked around and I found a computer that I really liked back home. It's a simple Dell XPS 15-inch laptop SD card SSD hard drive. There we go, with reasonable graphics and all the rest of it. So it'd be a fine, portable, working computer for like the next couple of years at the very least. And that was fine by me. That's what I'm looking for. So I got it. And I started paying monthly for it and all that stuff. And problem is, I had to buy it in Canada over the internet. So it's shipped to my Canadian address. And unfortunately, shipping computers over the power of air mail is somewhat of a bitch. So I'm not getting a computer until Christmas. As you guys can imagine, it kind of bums me out just a touch. But hey, that's how the SlowCast has come to be. So you know what? Wherever something bad happens, it's an opportunity to do something else, to look on a positive side and go, hey, you know what, I can do something else with this, and I can work with it. That's all fine by me. So that's where we stand. I have a computer, it's waiting for me back home, and as soon as December hits, I'm going to be able to start making videos again and doing video content, and hopefully being able to continue that over on this side of the pond as well. That would be ideal. So what am I doing in the meantime? Well, we've got the SlowCast, and now that I'm experimenting with different ways to make it, including what I'm using right now, which is GarageBand specifically. I used Audacity before, and it was kind of a horror to work with, I'm not gonna lie. I couldn't change the volume of tracks, as you guys probably heard, so this time hopefully it works out better. Anyway, I'm using GarageBand to create these podcasts now, and after I get about 3 of them up and running, and once I've figured out a simple way to create them, which this seems to be one, then I'll be able to put them on iTunes as well, so you guys can just listen to them. And past that, I've also started to do National Novel Writing Month, or NaNoWriMo, for this year. For those, again, who don't have me on the Twitters, and you probably should, I have been starting to write a novel. And I've kind of taken it upon myself to make it like a daily for Nuclear Throne or something like that. And when I inevitably get my hands on Afterbirth, and so help me when I do, it'll be a good day, I will play those dailies as well. But for now, I've got a different kind of daily. It's write words. Write lots of words. Write 1,667 words per day at least. And I've been doing pretty well. Actually, I've been going over that limit by several hundred words every day for the past couple of days. And the novel's coming along nicely. I've been posting the novel up on my blog, and it's this piece of sci-fi, suspense, thrilling stuff, whatever. It'll probably be a piece of shit. But it's a piece of shit that I'm writing, and if you guys are interested in finding out what I'm doing in my spare time, you guys can go and check that out. It's on my personal blog, filmeatworld.wordpress.com, or is it WordPress? I don't even remember. I think it's the first one. And yeah, that's what I'm doing. That's the situation here. And if you guys have any other ideas for things that I could be doing, or things that you guys would like me to do, I would be more than happy to look into it and see what we can do. And that track is called Chanson d'automne, from the Risk of Rain original soundtrack, or OST, composed and created by Christodoulou. It's a pretty spectacular OST as far as I'm concerned. Wonderful music for a great game. Love that game so much. One of the cool things that Christodoulou has done is put together an engineer version of the OST so that we can see the nuts and bolts that went behind actually creating that soundtrack. So if you are musically inclined and want to see how the soundtrack was built from the ground up, I would highly recommend looking into the engineer album of the Risk of Rain OST. For those who are not so musically inclined, just look at the OST and take a look at the music, because that stuff's pretty fantastic. Let's talk Bob Ross. For those who haven't been living under a rock for the past little bit, Bob Ross has been streaming on Twitch. He's been painting. A lot of painting in order to celebrate the opening of the new creative division for Twitch.tv. Now, for those who don't know, Bob Ross is dead. He's been dead for 20 years. And Bob Ross, as far as we've seen on Twitch, has been a pretty calm guy. He paints happy little trees and happy little rocks, and he's got a lot of titanium white on that palette of his. But all things considered, and in all seriousness, Bob Ross was a pretty freaking amazing artist. He had a style that was quick, efficient, and extremely impressive. One of the things that I really like about Bob Ross, though, is how he talks. I don't know about you guys, but how he speaks alone is reason enough to listen to him. It's soothing and calming. It's exactly what you need after a stressful day. And it's impressive, really, when you do the research, to imagine that the man that we know now is practically the opposite of what he first was. Bob Ross's first career was that of a military man, and he was stationed in Alaska and eventually reached the rank of Master Sergeant. So yeah, he was the guy yelling at people, cursing and swearing and telling them to clean up their shit in the latrine, literally. And to see the man change so drastically must have been a shock. But to research it was also interesting, because I saw a parallel. The parallel lies with Awesomenauts and change in general, but I want to use Awesomenauts to illustrate my point here. Right now we have a big change coming up in Awesomenauts. No lie, there's the XP system, and it is mildly terrifying to say the least. For a lot of people, it seems to signify the end times. Awesomenauts will no longer be the same game. And you know what? That's exactly right. Congratulations, armchair critics. You've managed it. It's not going to be the same game anymore. It's going to be a very different it's going to be a very different feel in a lot of respects. Now, armchair critics that have said that I have not played it, go suck an egg. Because I've seen a couple of people on Reddit, I've seen a couple of people on forums go, I haven't played it yet, but here's what I think about these changes. I'm like, no. You can download it for free, so go download it right now. I'll put a link in the description below, so that way you guys can go ahead and see the instructions for how to get it for yourself. Now, with that aside out of the way, this XP change is what Bob Ross would have called one of his opportunities, one of his little things that he wants to do. It's Ronimo's world, you see. It's like it's their canvas, and they can do whatever they kind of want with it. Now, in this case, they want to put in an XP system. A lot of people are getting scared about this. And the only reason why people are scared is because they care. And I get that. I care too. There's a reason why I'm super critical of literally everything that I play. I play games because I love them, and I'm critical of everyone that I play. Awesomenauts is no exception. But one of the things I'm particularly that I'm not happy about is how people are reacting to this. Instead of saying, oh, well, okay, that's the change that's going to happen, well, let's work with it, let's make it the best change we can, a lot of people are saying just revert the changes. And that's bullshit, as far as I'm concerned. Ronimo knows that there's something up with their game. It's not as deep as it could be, it's not as interesting as it could be, it's not as fun as it could be better. And Solar, as a system on its own, is not going to cut it. We know this. We know this because we have 45-minute to 50-minute long slog fests where nothing happens, because there's no advantage outside of Solar. And we've had games where we know who's going to win, but they extend for forever because the only way to play is to slowly poke away and hope that your Solar advantage stays right where it is. With the XP system, those kinds of games won't happen for nearly as long anymore. If you have an XP advantage and you are going to win, you will win a lot quicker. And that's fine. Like, if it's a foregone conclusion and you just win quicker, then that's fantastic. But the other thing that the XP system is designed to do is to rubber band, and that's a change that we just don't have in yet. That's why Ronimo's making this system. Those are the two big reasons, anyway. And a lot of the other changes in there, and there are a lot of changes. That's one of the biggest concerns I've seen so far, is that there are too many changes happening in one beta. And you know what? Kudos to you, because that's a very fair point. But one of the things I would like to implore that you do, instead of looking at a smudge that has been made and declaring that the entire canvas is ruined and throwing it out, I suggest that you take Bob Ross's particular stance on the thing and call it a happy little mistake. Instead of completely scrapping the canvas, think about how to turn that into a majestic mountain, into a happy little tree, into a shed. So that way everybody can, live without having to shout at each other. That would be great. That wraps up the content for this episode, except for one more section that I'm implementing with my right as the creator of the podcast, so screw anyone that says otherwise. We're going to be looking at the comments. So there's two comments that I want to address in today's podcast. The first one's by Karsh. He asks, why not vlog? My answer is, because my computer is shit. And unfortunately that means no video. So you guys will have to deal with the creepy Wolfle for now, which honestly I actually quite like the Wolfle, so deal with it. The other comment is by a guy called Michael Speth. We had a bit of a conversation, and it was an interesting little discussion, and I wanted to bring up his comment in particular because I felt that it was an interesting angle on the XP system. His big issue with it is the idea that max builds won't matter as much anymore, and I'll quote him in the following paragraphs or so. In Awesome Knots in 10 minutes, I don't feel any sort of accomplishment in terms of my character. 10-minute games for me generally mean I either stopped or got stopped, which isn't fun. I enjoy the 25 to 30 minute mark games. The length is ideal because you are not about to max build, so the choices you made really affect the end game, like did you take Piggy or not. So I'm generally against trying to turn Awesome Knots into a 10 or 15 minute game, as for me, those games are not satisfying. That is an excellent and valid opinion, as far as I'm concerned, but at the same time, I'm not, the claim that choices won't matter in the XP system, with the way that they're going, I think is not entirely true. I think that the choices that you make are even more important now because you have a shorter game within which to actually get the appropriate upgrades for the appropriate situations. You can't just expect to get to late game and eventually get the HP you need to survive those clunk explodes. If you need the HP, you need to get it now, or you might die too much to have it matter. So build order and build choice, I think, is going to be even more important than before. So if you like choice, if you think that those choices are what's really important to making a game more fulfilling, then don't worry, I think you're going to still have plenty of those. But if you think that Piggy Bank being a major choice, like the major choice as far as your early game is concerned, well then, yeah, you might have a problem with the XP system, because I think the XP system is an excellent step forward in getting rid of Piggy Bank and other items like it. So, yeah, fair point, absolutely valid opinion. We'll see whether or not, if you like choices, I don't think that's going to be the problem, but if you like having full builds, then yeah, that might be an issue. And that about wraps it up for this SlowCast episode. Thank you everybody so much for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves. I know I sure did. If you guys want to check out the music that I put on the podcast, there'll be links in the description below, and I'll see you guys in the next SlowCast. Take it easy.